interesting. All right. So, if you could just check in with chat as you get in. And what you see is a virtual Blackboard here, so. All right, so please log in or say hi in chat, right? Oops. All right, so I posted that up there. This is like pre-class. I'll just be chill. As we work our way through this, and I move between my web browser and the window of stuff here. Now, from what I understand about Google streaming, the delay might be longer because it buffers the stream, but we'll go from there. And I'm going to use this mainly to record lectures. If you want to watch it live, you can try to get a question in. We'll see how that goes. I might try to add other things to it. Also, I'm talking into a microphone, so my enunciation is going to be really different. Probably won't be jumping up and down and like I normally do, because it'll get really loud. That said, just holler if you need anything. The chat window is not quite showing the way I want it to, and I might adjust the one window here to see if I can see the chat at the same time. So for the next 15 minutes, I'm going to be moving things about, getting ready to start. But I apologize for that. I will try to keep sound going so it doesn't look like dead airspace. We should have like music in the background, but I'm not sure if I have the appropriate soundtrack for anything. So give me a minute here. Alright, so that's the new size of the screen for me. What does it look like here? Not bad, actually. Okay, that's not too bad. And a little sliver on the side that you guys see next to that as well, maybe. Oh, it's somewhat viewable. Well, I have small Blackboard space. Hey, Stacy. So I just saw on type to you, but you'll see that it'll take a minute here. Is the text? Well, let's do it in here for now. So right now, Stacy, you're the only one in here. I'm typing stuff to you. but you'll see it takes a second for the video to catch up with you. So questions will be a bit odd. Is the volume coming through? I know I'm not talking too much right now. Oh, wait, see, I say it here and then I type it here. This is the thing I'm going to get used to, is saying things and typing things. But once I start lecturing it, we'll probably get a little bit more smooth. So Alec asked a question. For some reason, he thought the classes didn't restart until the 30th, and that is true. But I have to get material together, and I was just going to record lectures, but I figured I could do a live stream if anyone had questions. But if I wait until the 30th to start recording all the lectures, it will take a while, because there's the material we needed to cover. That I'd be putting up as lectures. So I figured that this could be semi-interactive. And I hope that answered your question, Alex. I'm going to try to answer things verbally, so when people look at the video, the chat log won't be there. So I'll try to read the chats and answer them. Again, there is a delay on it. If I chose a low latency with no delay, the image I didn't think was clear enough to read the text coming across, and we'll see how this works. This will be a work in progress. You're not required to be in class for the live lectures, but I'm hoping that I can answer questions, which usually come up. I've done where I've taken classes where I've looked at a live lecture and really wanted to dissect questions from it, and the time delay on it's a little bit. So I'm trying to have some interaction here. I might play with the low latency and see if it's better. All right, so I'm going to start at 10:30s. It's 10:20 right now. I will kind of keep a screen up here as we go. I'll erase the screen at 10:30. Again, because of delays and stuff, everything will be a little close coming through. So just see if people get here, make sure the technology is working, make sure the sound's coming through. If there's any problems, we'll work them out. And there will be problems. Technology never goes as smoothly as you think it can or should. We will try to adapt to all the problems coming through. And this first lecture probably will not be indicative of how all the other lectures go. So if this doesn't quite work for you, let's give it one or more goes. I've had a way that I could hear you guys, unfortunately. So I will be trying to watch this chat window as it comes through. Let's see here. See, cool color changes. I used to use the about 2008, 2009 when I first saw Khan Academy, and I was tutoring. I came up with a way of doing a similar thing to what he did with recording lectures, to email things to students. It actually was not as smooth or easy as it could be, and all my software was on a Mac. I no longer use a Mac, so I've been like really quickly re-grabbing all that software. But I do have a nice tablet that makes it somewhat easy. But you're going to see that I'm going to have some writing difficulties with this as I go, and we'll get over it. um, as you just heard a thump, that is my voice. And so I'm going to talk to them for a second. So I'm actually going to try to mute this and see if I can shout to them without like infecting you with my dad voice. Hey guys. Switch subject and start another 40-minute timer in about 5 minutes. All right. Stretch, walk about. Don't just sit there the whole time. I somehow think you heard the whole thing there. So, oh well, we'll see how that goes. I was talking to my class. I tried to mute the volume and talk to you guys. I don't think I successfully muted the volume. So, got 6 minutes until their class starts, so they got a couple people waiting on the live stream. All right, 5 minutes and we'll get going here. Sorry, this is like me dancing up and down in front of the class.
It's snowing. Charlie, it's snowing.
Hey everyone, it's snowing. Pardon me again. So I'm seeing Alec, Ryan, and Stacy in the chat. If anyone else showed up and didn't say hi in the chat, I apologize for that. Again, there is a bit of a time delay on this, so I have the chat window up in the side next to my Blackboard. And there's Janine. I will try to respond to questions as I see them. So like right now, Ryan asked, hey, how's it going? And I would say, well, all things considered, it's going okay. And so, Ryan, you'll get an idea of how long the time delay is from when you ask that question. And Alex just said, well, we're supposed to get 8 inches of snow, so he probably heard my Sam saying that it was snowing. And I think most of that's supposed to come tonight, right? So who knows, maybe I'll cancel classes. All right. 3 minutes and I'll get going here. And I'm going to do the same thing I did in class. I'll give everyone a chance to log in at 10:30. I'll get started and I'll go from there. I'll keep my eye on the chat for questions. If I get any questions, I'll respond to them as soon as I see them. And we'll go from there. So, this is the verbal equivalent of me pacing up in front of the classroom. I was going to have a camera that I could turn on so that you could see me on this, and then I realized there's nothing, no reason to see my face or back, right? You just need the output from the blackboard. So I put the virtual blackboard up there. So again, some people have asked this. This will be on the recorded version of it. Classes don't start until the 30th. None of my due dates will start until the 30th. At least that's what I'm getting from the email. There's been some confusion on that, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do any due dates until past the 30th. But because of the material I need to create to do this, I figured, hey, we all get in one place using the live chat. And I record the material, and if anyone has questions, I can try to respond to it. In general, even waiting till the 30th, there would be a kind of condensed run to get all that material together. So I also figure this helps spread out the work and hopefully break some of the monotony of things. So we'll go from there. All right. So I'm going to start. We're going to be looking at Chapter 9. Now, where we were all going, and I'll do some recaps. Anything administratively I'm going to do in an email or an announcement. So what I'm going to do here right now is we're going to get started. I'm going to say, hey, are there any questions? I'm going to give it about a minute to see on chat if you guys have any questions. I'll try to address any questions from there, and then I'll move into the material itself. So, any questions? All right, so I can see the stream itself going through, and so I know you've heard any questions. I didn't see anything going through chat, so I will get started here. And I'll just keep my eye on the chat window in the corner. So what we have done in problem solving, or those lovely things called word problems, and I hope we realize that a word problem isn't meant to be like an arbitrarily hard thing from a textbook. It is a way of communicating a real world, and then we translate that into mathematics. Mathematics is a language that structures things in quantity, and in doing that structure, the descriptions we make solve things for us. The description has answers and solutions that have deeper meaning. And we translate that into our words so that we get used to the translation of reality into number. There are some mathematicians that argue number is the true real thing. I'm not one of them. I think it's just one of those neat tools people invented to understand things, just like language we invented to understand things better. And what we did as we went through is we looked at different keywords and what the keywords meant, and then we looked at basic algebra, where we had equations, right, something like this, where we would get all of the variables on one side and all the numbers on the other. So I would subtract x from this side, which gives me 0 for the x's. Right? Subtract x, subtract x. And in subtracting x, I would be able to, how did they say it in the original Arabic? Reconcile the disparaging parts, right? So subtract x from each side. I'll subtract 5 and add 8. And so x equals 3/2. And so algebra is a tool where we have an unknown thing. And so it kind of we started looking at particular words that translated across, and then we looked at algebra as a way of writing about unknown things. We then looked at ratios, comparing two values as multiples of each other. Like 3/5 of something is equal to x over 4 of something. Then we had the cross multiplying that we could do with it. And then we looked at a very particular part of ratios. And ratios, also had their friends rates, which were, rates were 3 miles per 2 hours, right? And you'd get something miles per hour, and so you would have some units and then in some number out in front of it. And so rates and ratios are both in language, right? They have the same root word, rate, ratio, which is where we get the idea of fractions from. They have a similar format and structure. Just understand rates come with the units. And that actually is very, very helpful for setting up a problem. When you don't know an equation, you don't know how to set it up, you can use the units to help you find how things are going. And then in after ratios, we looked at a very specific. That's the our Google Assistant timer, which the kids have for their class time. We looked at percentages, percents, which were a specific ratio. Sorry about that. Ratio. Which is, as the word, per 100. And so percentages are some number over 100. So 80% is equal to 80 over 100, or 0.8. And so percentages were a way of doing a very particular set of ratios. And that's kind of where we were when we left off. Now, I'm going to do online versions of what would have been the in-class activities. If you notice, I printed those worksheets. They had come from the book. So I'm going to put online versions of those, and we will work on those as time progresses. I'll put good due dates on them. And I wanted to come back and look at algebra, ratios, and percentages. And kind of cover those, and then we were looking at what would have been next week an exam on those. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do lectures on these and look at having the exam due probably the first week of April. It'll be online. You can take it at your leisure, and then we will, as you're working your way to that exam, I'll be working on the last part of the book, which is deeper algebraic expressions. So if we are following along in an opening line, sorry, I hit the microphone a little bit there. It's like a huge boom. Didn't come through my headphones too loud. We have finished chapters 1 through 8 in our copy of the textbook. I will get the online numbers there. We have left to do 9, 10, and 11. And to be honest, the second half of 8. So I'm going to say we finished chapters 1 through 7. And that's right where I wanted an exam. I was looking to come back in for an exam after the break. So what we're going to focus on today is kind of the last part of chapter 8, algebraic expressions and solving linear equations. But I am also going to put up the review material on the ratios and percents and the word problems, and we'll keep talking about that as time goes on. So this is kind of our recap, and I'm going to move into algebraic expressions. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say any questions on the recap. Wait about a minute because I can see when my video delay catches up with you, and then we'll go from there. And if you see me moving a little bit oddly in the background, that is me getting used to them moving between the two windows I have to here. So, any questions? Interesting. I'm not seeing a change on my display. Yeah. So I put a marker up on the screen, and then I wanted to see if that came up on it. Apparently the delay time is a little bit here. I'm not seeing that marker come up on the screen. When I tested it last week, I was only getting like a 30-second delay. It looks like we're over a minute here. I will work on bringing that latency down. This is the things we'll adapt and learn to. So I'm going to wait until that marker appears on the screen. Hope I'm actually seeing the markers. All right, so I have cleared the board, and I will go from there. A comment is, if you have any question while I am talking, type it in, and I will swing back and grab the questions as we go. I'm not. And I've been fairly quiet, so okay. Let's try this again. I'm going to stop my connection to the stream and restart it and see what happens. I rebooted the stream. We should be closer to a live activity. In fact, I'm seeing my mouse move much quicker. What happened was my preview paused, and so it never updated. So I take it you had no questions, and I'll continue from there. I'll get used to this. I have a second computer I was going to run my preview on, so I will fix it from there. All right. So I'm going to kind of take us 2 steps back. We're really looking at chapters 9 and 8. We're looking at equations and algebra using the unknown. And we'll go from the algebra into that for word problems. The whole goal of this is to take things from the real world and try to make them make sense. Let me get back into my window here. Good. All right. So we had our rules, our properties of real numbers, and these are going to be our building tools for whenever we do anything. And so the properties for real numbers we're going to look at build expressions. And so properties, our properties of real numbers, which we had for addition and multiplication. Addition and multiplication. There we go. And so we had our identity, which is the one I love to use the most. If I add to 0, I get the thing I started with back. If I multiply by 1, I get the thing I started with back. That's what identities were. And this becomes a trick that we can use to get rid of things that are in our way. We had commutation, which I'm just going to abbreviate, which means the order that we do these things in don't matter. Right? And I know I've pounded these in the whole semester. I keep repeating these, and we're going to study these in detail. 2 seconds, please. Gentlemen. I'm just reminding my boys. And then associative, which I will abbreviate a little bit longer so it doesn't look so bad. That which grouping we do things in doesn't matter. Whoops, that should be a C. All right, we'll see how I can erase here. I should have removed these. Boom, boom. There we go. C and association over here. That's it. And then we had commutate our distribution, which combined multiplication and addition. And all of these rules will hold for all real numbers, even when we don't know what the real number is. And we will find that we'll have to come back to these for tricks. We also define subtraction, as an addition with negative numbers, and we define division as a multiplication with a fraction. And so we defined everything in terms of these of these basic properties of real numbers. And we can build real numbers from there. And then we worked our way up and down PEMDAS to put real numbers together. And what we want to do with them now is we want to build these little things called expressions. And so we're going to work our way through different expressions we can build and what those expressions look like. Expressions will end up being one part of an equation, like either the left-hand side or the right-hand side. And we're going to look at how we can put expressions together in different ways. And so the expressions I'm going to start with deal within word problems themselves. And we're just going to pull a couple word problems together and work on them. So I'll clear this through and we'll move through. The nice thing is all these videos are saved, so we'll go back. I might rush a little bit as I clear screens because I know you can get back to it. And yeah, the phone's ringing in the background. I will find some way of getting silence. Sorry, everyone. And yes, I do prefer the bright colors on the black background because I think they're easier to read on a screen. But that is me with my own idiosyncrasies. We'll live with it and see what we can do. So if we look at how we can build an expression out of the values that we get for a word problem. And so in your book, I'm looking at problem 118, which is a building an expression out of this word problem. And so it says the value of a company stock rose by 50 cents. And we're going to write 50 cents in dollar format. This is 0.50 per share. And then dropped by 75 cents per share. What was the value? What was the value of the change in the stock price? So minus some handwriting problems here. We're going to look at this in bits and pieces. And so the first thing I do, and I've repeated this through, is we look at a word problem. We read it once. And so I've read it as I wrote it. And there's some things I noted in there. There is a definite unit. I have a price per share repeated twice. Right? And so units are important when measuring something in the real world. We need to know what to measure with. I often teach in my physics classes that when you have a ruler or a meter stick, when I say something is 6 meters long, I'm multiplying the number of meter sticks I need to make it. It is a mathematical operation, but I need that meter stick to do it. The number on its own has no meaning. And so one of the things we're going to have to make sure of as we work our way on the word problem side of this is that we're aware of what we're measuring and that we see what we're measuring. I think in money, the units get come out here up front. If you're in England, you get the pound for their money symbol. What is it? Yen. In Japan, something similar to that. And we get the dollar sign out in front of ours. That is a unit. It is the unit of money. And notice it has a rate per share, which means if I had 100 shares, I would know how much money this was worth. That rate will be a clue for solving more complex problems as we move on with this. But what we're going to focus on right now is what can we do with the values that we have. And so I see the units. I know I'm going to have to talk in the units that I'm given. And so I go back and I reread it the second time, right? First time I read it through, what did I notice? I noticed there's some units. And we go, there's some numbers in there. But my key was focus on the units, right? Focus on units. All right. And it says that my stock rose. So I got a rose color to say it rose, and then dropped. So there's two actions happening, and they're directional. I notice I'm going through and I'm breaking down everything here. Some of us could, right now, put the one positive and the one negative, and put them together and get a negative number as the answer. And I understand that. What I'm trying to do is break down the pieces, because as these things get more complex, finding some of the simpler pieces can help us. And so I'm going to make the rising stock. I want to make the rising stock positive. So I'm going to say that I have a positive 50 cents. And then I'm going to make the falling stock negative. So I've let these determine my signs. And the value of change in the stock price. Now, when things change, we usually are looking at an addition or subtraction between two endpoints. And here was the beginning point. Right, as I jiggle my right, we started with a 50-cent rise, and then we went down. We lost 0.75 cents. So if I put this all together, again, use our calculators, please. We've got computer calculators now. But it's in the negative direction. And so I could say, and I do want to do this in word problems, the stock price fell. And now I'm going to go back to my units. 25 cents, or 0.25 of a dollar, per share. And so we try to end things coming back with the units that we had. And so this is an example of how an addition or subtraction comes through in a word problem, and how we write it in forms of an expression. I really only wrote one side. I didn't worry about this side. Right? Whatever I did over here would tell me what the other side was. We didn't have an unknown thing kind of hiding behind the corners that we had to do any large algebraic expressions on. I had my two values, and the idea of the change made me focus on an addition and subtraction. And that's what their exercises are going to do. We're going to do addition and subtraction, multiplication and division, and exponents as separate things, and then we're going to learn on how we put them all together. All right, I'm going to go into this. That's how an addition and a subtraction comes out in an expression on a word problem. What I'm going to do here is we're going to look at some multiplications and divisions, and look at a way of getting multiplication and division out. And we're also going to look at averages, because they come through a lot in multiplication and division, where we put things together. All right, so I'm going to clear this out. Okay, so Janine has a really good question here. She goes, is it only negative because of the way I wrote it out? I think for what we're measuring, negative is the best description, because we would talk about a rise being positive and a fall being negative. And I fell more than I rose. So the overall effect would be my price went down. It tells us a direction, if the price went down or up. And so in this case, I rose 50 cents, but then I lost 75. So all said and done, I lost a quarter per share. And so to show that loss, we use the negative sign. All right, does that answer your question, Janine? Yep. Fall is negatives. Falling are negative. Risings are positive. Yes. All right. Okay. Now again, we've worked on all the rules of the numbers behind this. I'm using words and numbers together, just to see how we can slowly start putting some of these rules together. So let me write out this problem. This is, actually, we gave a problem number in the book, but I didn't give a section number. I do apologize for that. I will get a little more. I am on chapter 8, section 3. Section 3, problem 99 right now. And again, I'm looking at the things we're going to use to extract from word problems and put into everything we've done before. So we've gone through every chapter we've done before and looked at all the word problems. And now we're looking at the building blocks in a little bit of detail. So during a drought, now this is just like when I'm up at the board too, right? When I'm writing a problem out, I'll tend to mumble it while I write, and of course I'll never write it quite right? And that just happens. I was going to scan these in and flip over to slides and go back and forth, but the pause actually has value to me of reading these things as we go. So during a drought, the water level in a reservoir dropped 3 inches each week for 5 straight weeks. I will get my hand a little bit smoother. What was the overall change in the reservoir? All right, so I'm going to do the first reading. During a drought, the water level in a reservoir dropped 3 inches in each week for 5 straight weeks. What was the overall change in the reservoir? Now, dropping and rising, again, I picked this. Notice it's not stocks anymore. I'll still use my rosy color here. Even though it didn't rise, it all dropped, right? And so we have something dropping, and it wants the overall change. And so the word change comes in there. Change means something's different. It's not the same it was before. And these are the keys I'm kind of looking for in here. And the in each is saying, hey, I might need to multiply. Right? Because I have multiple things, and in each of them, this 3-inch thing is happening, right? This 3-inch drop. So what I would do is I would say I have -3 inches, and technically it's inches per week if we look at our units, because it's 3 inches each week times 5 weeks. Right. And whoops, I don't want that. Oh, will that work? Yeah, there we go. So notice by using my units here, if I look, let's see, get my pointer here. In each week is a unit. It's inches, 3 inches each week, or 3 inches per week. That becomes a unit, which I put here. Right, there's my unit, inches per week. But that happens over 5 weeks, which has another unit, which I put here. having my units come together, notice if I treat the numbers as a separate thing, so I'll come over here and I'll treat the numbers as their own thing. And then over here, I'll treat the units as their own thing. Well, this fraction here, when I have weeks over weeks, when I have anything over top of itself, they cancel. And I'm left only with inches. And so this answer will be in inches. And so negative 15 inches. And so we can say in 5 weeks. And we do want to do this. We do want to convert our answers back into English. We do want to communicate what we found. So in 5 weeks, the reservoir lost 5 inches. Or, whoops, 15 inches. Caught myself. In 5 weeks, the reservoir lost 15 inches of, what do we call that? What do we call it? Lost 15 inches. I guess just lost 15 inches would be good enough, wouldn't it? So I'll scratch that off. Okay. It's the river level, out on the river, so I guess it would be the lake level or the reservoir level. So in 5 weeks, the reservoir lost 15 inches. And we can use our signs to help us keep track of the direction of changes. And so if things are being lost, we'll want them to be negative signs. If things are being gained, we'll want them to be positive signs. Because we might have multiple things involved in the change, and we won't know if we've gained or lost, but our signs will help us with that. And now, again, I want to go back. We're taking all the rules we did of multiplication, division, subtraction, and addition, and we're looking for keys in them. Now, by focusing on signs and the direction things are happening, we can do most of our additions and subtractions just as additions. And the direction of the change comes in through. In this multiplication, the key for me was this in each. I had something happening per each part. And this is where rates become very, very useful. And so on the stuff we do, we want to keep track of rates. Because the rates is telling me how many inches per week. Well, if I have 5 weeks, I'll get an answer in inches. And this is why they cancel through. Let's look at a similar problem. If I can find one. I wasn't going to do another one, but let me see if I can get you a similar problem. And oh wait. Now I'll do the next problem, but it doesn't have a similar thing within rates. I know I have a worksheet that I have that has a couple of rate problems on them. I will add an addendum to this when I get the worksheet out. All right, bear with me. I kind of have highlighted the 5 things I want to cover today. We've got through 2 of them, so we're doing good. All right, I'm going to clear this out. If you have any questions, shout. All right, and that's that. I'm still here. I'm making things pretty. All right. Well, we're going to look at tabular data. And this is something that happens a lot in real-world situations. Someone gets data and they give it to you. They put it in a list or they put it in some format. So again, I'm still in the same section. I'm looking at problem 101 and what we can do with tabular data. I do apologize. This pen is not as sensitive on my backstroke, I'm noticing. So when I curl things around, I'm losing some of it. Alright, so that'll go away. Alright, so we're going to have a table that has two columns. It's food and the number of calories per serving. Which is written as if it was written by a 3-year-old. So, so an apple, a banana, a pretzel stick.
All right, 40 minutes, starting now.
Ginger ale in a can, and a donut. All right, so I have foods, and I'm going to have their number of calories per serving, and so we have 80 calories per serving in an apple, 105 for a banana, 30 for a pretzel stick, 125 for a can of ginger ale, and 210 for a donut. And so this is the idea of what tabular data is. It's a way of presenting information that you can access multiple pieces of information at once. And then we can ask questions about what can happen. And so in this problem, there's two tables given. In this problem in the textbook, there are two tables given. One for the food and how many calories you gain, and then one for activities. So let me bring my activities here. I'll change my color for activity. There we go. And I know when I was running a lot, I used to do this all the time. I would add up the calories I would take in and the calories I would burn, almost obsessively. It worked, but burnt a lot of time too, keeping track of it all. Oh, let's get back up here. There we go. And so we'll have swimming, we will have biking, we'll have football, basketball, and cleaning floors. And so this burns 288 calories. This burns 612. And I think this is per 1 hour. Yep, 1 hour. Football is 498. Basketball is 450. And cleaning floors is 440. Alright, so I have tabular information that we can use. Now again, the purpose of the table, notice, I have a unit here for how long the activity is. I have a unit here for what you burn. And I have a unit here for what you get from foods. And notice my word choice I'm using on this. I have tabular information. Just with this information, I can talk about how many calories I take in, I consume, I eat, I add to my calorie count. I increase, I gain. And so all of this stuff's positive. And then down here, when I talk about the activities, I have the calories I burn, they go away. I lose them, I expend them. And so all this stuff's negative. And so I now have a reason to use the signs and my numbers to talk about these things. I can combine things that I do between these things. So what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try to keep this so I can come back to it. So let me just call it calories and see if that works. And then it'll do a new one here. And see if that pops up nicely. Alright, we'll see if that works. I have no promises or guarantees of smooth transitions between the two things. But let me backfill this and get a new screen here. Alright, and let's see if I can pull up the other one. And double checking that this is still coming through. Yep, looking good. Alright. 2 seconds here. Nope. Alright. So, we've set aside the calories that I am taking in as a positive thing. Coming in towards me is positive. And then calories going out are negative. And so my signs become these things that help me guide what's flowing through me. Or whoever I'm talking about with these things. I guess I'm being slightly egocentric on that. And so we can answer a question which is, someone eats 3 pretzel sticks. Then plays 1/2 hour of basketball. Let's see if I can get a new window. Open. Alright, I've got a new window here. Let me see if I can add it to this. Alright, I've got that added there. Let me see if it comes up on the side. The screen should be changing slightly here for you here. Sorry about this. I'm just trying to show the two things at once and see if that works for me. It's looking good on my preview. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so now I have the two things at once. Yay, stuff works as it's supposed to. Alright. Alright, so if I look at someone eating 3 pretzel sticks, that 3 pretzel sticks is a gain in calories. So I come over on my chart, I look over on my chart at 3 pretzel sticks. So 1 pretzel stick is 30 calories, so 30 calories per serving. And I'm going to have 3 servings. So that's how much calories are coming in. I'm going to add to it, and yes, I'm going to use addition here. I'm playing basketball, which is negative 450 calories per hour, but I'm only doing it for 1/2 hour. Alright, so I'm going to take my time here now that I have set everything up, okay? What I've used is I've used my table and the rates to match the things it's asking. And it says, hey, I've eaten 3 pretzel sticks. Well, how many calories do I get from eating 3 pretzel sticks? Well, that says 3 times 30. Then I want to play a half hour of basketball. Well, my table for basketball. If I come here and look at my table for basketball, has that in basketball for every hour. Because remember the unit up at the top here was in hours. I lose 450 calories. So, if I'm only playing for a half hour, I have to multiply by a half. Now I use the decimal version of a half because we're going to be tending to use calculators. You could multiply this, right? We could say the same thing as 1/2 hour, as long as we multiplied it on our calculator, fine. And so servings will cancel servings, and hours will cancel hours. So notice my units stay in calories. It's really important that when you do additions, that they have the same units. You can only add things with the same units. And so this multiplication here cancels units. Told you these rates would come in very useful, and they can help us line things up. So that's 90 calories I'm taking in. And I'm going to bring my sign out front because I know it's going to be a negative times a positive, which will be negative. And I'm expending 225 calories. And so I'm actually grabbing my calculator and doing 90 minus 225, which is negative 135. And so this person has expended 135 calories with this half-hour activity and that intake. And so notice we're taking all the symbols that we've used before and that we're putting them together, making the rates help us define problems. Okay, so these are the main things I wanted to cover today. Now, normally, if this would have been normal class, we'd be working on worksheets now. What I'm going to go do right now is on Pearson, I'm going to assign the worksheets that focus on the word problems that we'll be looking at. If you have any questions, email me, and we'll go from there. But this is kind of how these are going to work. They're going to be, remember, I lecture for about half of the time, 3/4 of the time, and then we try to work on the worksheets, give or take how the days went. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to focus on a chunk of material, and then I'm going to assign worksheets on Pearson. I'm going to use the schedule we would have had for how often I record the material, and these will be open live so that you can ask questions, which the questions actually went fairly well. I think as you get more used to it, you'll type into chat a little bit more, and we'll get used to the delay. I'll work on getting the delay time down on that. And I'll try to get a little smoother with my technology. I apologize for the hiccup there in the middle. But I think this is a good chunk to focus on here. And then come Wednesday, I'll record another chunk. And we'll work on worksheets on the back end of that. So I'll ask right now, any questions? And I'll just hang out here looking at chat. Maybe I'll draw little squiggly shapes while I wait. Coming through. And so this is probably a smaller version. It was a first attempt. I'm okay with it. If you need anything different from me, let me know. And as you're comfortable, you can sign off. This will be saved once I end the stream, and I'll put a link back up to it up on YouTube. There's a lot of dead space in it. I'll work on cleaning that up. And Gene, I'm not calling you out. That is, yes, I will see you when you come into the chat. I think that'll probably, I'll try to make that my default screen, say something in chat so I know you're here. I'm not an attendance-driven person, but thank you for letting me know that. So Alec asks a good question. He's asking how exams will work. And what I'll be doing is I'll be using the test feature in Pearson. I pick however many questions I want, and Pearson puts them up. They will randomize the numbers, so none of you will get the same numbers. But, sorry, randomly, the chances of you getting the same numbers are small. Then you take them. I'm going to give you the week that I assign that they're due. The whole week, you take them whenever you want to. On that, they will be timed. Once you start, you have to complete them. You can't start, stop. For now, that's how Pearson does their exams. If that becomes a big pain in the butt, I'll reevaluate it. But you take them online. You actually are free to use any resource you have. I don't think it makes actually a huge difference. We are already in calculator mode, so and you take the exam. I will do the same thing. I will give a practice exam beforehand. So I will generate one, print it out, and send you the PDF of that with the answers so you can practice like before. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so Tina said she got knocked off early and caught the last problem. So one of the nice things that well, not nice. I'm sorry I lost you there for Tina. You have good questions. But what's nice about this format is this is recorded on YouTube. So I will, in about 15 minutes, be able to give you a link to the whole lecture. And so, as for accessing my notes, what you see on the screen is about what my notes look like. So what's nice is once this is recorded, you can go backwards and forwards through it too, so you don't have to listen to my weird pauses. Those pauses will get lower. That's okay, Jan. You didn't have to say anything. So Jan's been here for a while and didn't say anything. That's fine. Again, I'm not taking attendance. This is here for everyone. I just like to know who's there, especially when you have your strange Gmail profile names or whatever. And I wouldn't have recognized that as you, Jan. So that's a good thing to know. But we're doing good. So Tina specifically, as I see now that you have 2 questions, yes, you can access this entire lecture once I post it. All right, continue asking questions. I'll respond to them, but when you're happy with things, you can log on off, and I'll post things when it's done. So let's see here. All right, so the sound's probably going to end, but the chat should stay open. Hopefully, if all works. If not, I'll email everyone.